businessman disrespected everyone, until the new girl mocked him to his face. Michael Robert Thompson was used to being feared. In the fanciest restaurant in New York City, his shouts echoed through the dining room as he humiliated employees with cruel insults, constantly reminding everyone of his financial superiority. That Tuesday morning, when the new 20-year-old server tripped and spilled hot coffee on his $15,000 Italian suit, he expected to see tears and desperate apologies. But instead, Emily Parker burst into spontaneous laughter that filled the entire room. "There, now you look even more elegant," she said, eyeing the brown stains on the grey fabric. "The coffee matches your bitter personality perfectly." Silence fell over the restaurant. The other servers froze mid-service, plates trembling in their hands. Customers paused their conversations, all eyes fixed on the scene. Michael felt the blood rush to his face, his hands shaking with rage. "You're fired," he shouted, abruptly standing up from the table. "Get out of here right now." "Calm down, Michael," intervened Mrs. Williams, the restaurant's 65-year-old manager who had worked there for over 20 years. "The girl is new, she's still learning. I don't care, this... He searched for even harsher words, but Emily cut him off. "This what, Mr. Thompson?" she asked, still smiling. "This person who isn't afraid of you." The veteran employees had never seen anyone talk to the boss like that. Michael was known for ruining careers with a single phone call. Entire companies trembled when his name popped up on caller ID. "You know what?" Emily continued, slowly removing her apron. "I'll make you an offer." "What offer?" he asked, still red with anger. "I'll work here for a whole month without earning a single dollar, but you'll have to treat me with the bare minimum of respect every human being deserves. If you humiliate me even once, I'll leave and never come back. How about that?" The young woman's audacity left everyone speechless. Mrs. Williams held Michael's arm, well aware of his explosive temper. "And why would I accept such a ridiculous offer?" he asked, adjusting his stained jacket. "Because you're afraid to lose," Emily replied simply. "Because deep down, you know the only way you feel big is by making others feel small." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now, back to the story. Michael looked around. Everyone awaited his response. His reputation as a ruthless man was on the line. If he refused, it would seem he was afraid of a 20-year-old girl. If he accepted, well, breaking that arrogant young woman would be easy in just a few days. "Fine," he said, extending his hand. "I accept your offer. But when you walk out of here crying, I want everyone to remember you chose this." Emily shook his hand firmly. Her palms were calloused, a sign of someone who had always worked hard. Michael noticed she didn't tremble, not even for a second. "Perfect. We start tomorrow then," she said, grabbing her apron back. "Oh, and Mr. Thompson, you'll need to sign a paper confirming our bet, just to make sure you're a man of your word." The girl's insolence was unbelievable. Michael was about to shout again when Mrs. Williams stepped closer. "Michael, you know my friend Sarah, don't you?" the manager whispered. "Emily is her daughter. She's a good girl, just going through a rough patch." Michael had known Sarah Parker for years. She was one of the restaurant's most loyal customers, always polite and respectful. How could such a kind woman have such a bold daughter? "That changes nothing," he muttered. "Tomorrow that girl will learn who's in charge here." That night, Michael returned to his penthouse in the Upper East Side, thinking about the impertinent young woman. In 25 years of running businesses, he had never encountered someone who simply wasn't intimidated by his authority. It was like trying to shatter a mirror, only to find it was made of steel. The next day, he arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual, determined to begin his campaign to humiliate Emily. He found her in the kitchen, helping organize the day's ingredients. "Emily!" he shouted, making sure everyone heard. "You're cleaning all the restaurant's bathrooms with a toothbrush." She turned to him with a radiant smile. "Of course, Mr. Thompson," she replied, singing. "What song would you like me to sing while I work? How about My Way?" And she began singing Frank Sinatra as she grabbed the cleaning supplies. Her melodious voice echoed through the halls, turning the punishment into something almost festive. The other employees couldn't help but smile. Michael clenched his fists. This wasn't humiliation. It was almost a celebration. "Stop singing," he ordered. "Oh, you don't like jazz?" she asked, pausing at the bathroom door. "How about country?" Sweet Caroline always stirs the heart. "Stop singing." "Got it. You prefer the tomb-like silence that matches your icy heart. No problem." And she stepped into the bathroom, whistling softly. Michael wanted to punch the wall. All morning he tried different strategies. He made her carry heavy boxes from the pantry. She carried them while dancing as if it were choreography. He told her to polish every glass in the restaurant. She made funny faces in the reflection, making customers laugh. At lunch, when he complained the food was bland, she brought him an extra plate. "I thought you might need a little more spice in your life," she said, serving him gracefully. "Someone as bitter as you must be missing some flavor." "I didn't ask for extra food." "It's the house's courtesy for special customers," she winked. "And you're very special, Mr. Thompson. I've never met anyone who could suck the joy out of a room just by being there. It's a rare talent." It was clear she turned every attempt at humiliation into either ironic praise or a joke. Michael began to feel ridiculous. In the afternoon, he noticed Emily always carried a pink notebook with unicorn stickers. She kept stopping to jot something down, always smiling. "What are you writing in that ridiculous thing?" he asked, trying to snatch the notebook from her hands. "Oh, this." She held it to her chest. "Just some personal observations." "What kind of observations?" "Nothing that would interest you." Curiosity gnawed at Michael. What kind of things did someone write down at work? Was she documenting his attempts to humiliate her to sue the restaurant later? By the end of the first day, he was exhausted. Emily, on the other hand, seemed to have more energy than when she arrived. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Thompson," she said, waving cheerfully. "It was a pleasure working with you today." "Pleasure?" He laughed bitterly. "I spent the whole day trying to humiliate you." "I know," she smiled, "but you failed miserably. It gives me hope there's still some humanity behind all that scowling." Michael stood frozen at the restaurant's entrance, watching her walk away down the street. What kind of person stayed cheerful after a whole day of being mistreated? By the second week, he changed tactics. Instead of direct attacks, he decided to create awkward situations. He deliberately scheduled important meetings during her work hours, hoping she'd make a fool of herself in front of key clients. On Wednesday, during a business lunch with executives from the country's largest hotel chain, Emily served the table with subtle dance-like movements. She swayed her hips gently while distributing plates and did little twirls when pouring drinks. "What an interesting waitress," remarked the CEO, a man in his 50s. "She's turned the simple act of serving food into art." "Working with joy is the secret to life," Emily replied with a small curtsy. "Food tastes better when served with care." The executives were charmed. They discussed service philosophy with her, how to create memorable experiences for guests. By the meeting's end, they'd signed the restaurant's biggest contract ever. "Your employee was instrumental in closing this deal," the director told Michael. "She embodies exactly the kind of positive energy we want in our hotels." Michael was baffled. How did she keep turning his sabotage attempts into triumphs? That evening, he stayed late at the restaurant trying to understand. That's when he saw Emily in the service area, patiently talking to George, a 70-year-old waiter who'd worked there for decades. "Don't worry, George," she said, gently holding the elderly man's trembling hands. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is learning and moving forward." The old man had dropped a tray full of dishes, something that usually earned shouts and humiliation from Michael. But Emily helped him clean up the shards without irritation. "At my age, you start getting clumsier," George murmured. "Nonsense," she replied. "You have more experience and wisdom than all of us combined. A few broken plates don't change that." Michael hid behind a pillar, watching. After George left, Emily stayed behind to finish cleaning. That's when she took out her pink notebook and began writing. Curiosity overcame caution. When she went to the restroom, he sneaked over to read her notes. "George helped an elderly customer cut her meat without being asked. Has a heart of gold." Mrs. Williams mediated an argument between two staff members with remarkable wisdom and patience. Daniel, chef, stayed late to teach the new hire his secret sauce recipe. "Mr. Thompson, almost smiled when the executives approved the contract. For a second, the mask slipped, and I saw a real person beneath all that bitterness. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please like and subscribe. It really helps us newcomers. Now, continuing. Michael read and reread the last note. She'd seen something in him even he didn't know existed. He snapped the notebook shut when he heard her returning. "Something wrong, Mr. Thompson?" she asked, noticing him. "I was just checking everything was clean," he stammered. "You're very dedicated," she smiled. "Even after hours, you still care about the restaurant. That's admirable." He left, confused. How did she find goodness in even his worst behavior? By the third week, Michael arrived even earlier, determined to catch Emily off guard. He wanted to find some flaw, some crack in her constant cheer. On Monday, he came at 6 a.m. and found the restaurant empty, or nearly empty. Hearing noises from the kitchen, he went to investigate. Emily was there, preparing a large pot of soup. Beside her, 3 skinny cats ate kibble from an improvised bowl. "What is this?" he asked. She startled, dropping the spoon. "Mr. Thompson, you're early today. Answer my question. What are you doing here at this hour?" She hesitated. "I was making soup to take to my neighbor. She's sick and has no one to care for her. And the cats, they live on the street out back. I thought, well, since I arrive early anyway, it wouldn't hurt to feed them." Michael looked at the 3 animals. They were thin but had clean fur. It was obvious she'd been caring for them for a while. "Are you using ingredients from the restaurant?" "No," she replied quickly. "I bring food from home. I'd never take anything without permission." He examined the soup. It smelled good, with generous chunks of meat and fresh vegetables. "What kind of illness does your neighbor have?" "It's Mrs. Williams, an 80-year-old woman. She has pneumonia but refuses to go to the hospital. I bring her food and medicine every day." Michael fell silent for a moment. Emily took the chance to finish packing the soup into a thermos. "I'll just take this to her before my shift starts," she said. "I'll be back in 15 minutes. "Wait," he stopped her. "Where does this woman live?" "Right there in the neighborhood next door." "Why?" Michael didn't answer. He simply followed her as she left the restaurant. The neighborhood was literally on the other side of the establishment's wall. It was a stark contrast. On one side, the most luxurious restaurant in the area. On the other, wooden and tin houses where people lived with the bare minimum. Emily climbed a steep path to a small green house. She knocked gently on the door. "Mrs. Williams, it's me, Emily. I brought your lunch." A frail voice answered from inside. "Come in, dear." Michael stayed outside but could hear the conversation. "How are you feeling today?" "Better, thanks to you. That soup last night gave me strength all through the night." "Good, I brought medicine too. Do you remember to take it properly?" "Yes, I do. You're an angel, Emily. I don't know what I'd do without your help." "Nonsense, Mrs. Williams. You've cared for so many people in your life. Now it's our turn to care for you." When Emily left the house, she was startled to see Michael standing there. "You followed me? How do you know this woman?" Mrs. Williams worked as a housekeeper her whole life. Raised 5 children alone after her husband left. Now she's old, sick, and her children live far away. Someone has to look after her. "And you decided it would be you?" "I didn't decide anything," she began, walking down the path. "I'm just doing what anyone with a heart would do." Michael followed her in silence. When they returned to the restaurant, she was already tying her apron, ready for another day of work. "Emily," he called. "Yes?" "This soup. Where do you get the money to buy the ingredients?" She hesitated before answering. "I work nights at a diner downtown, from 11 at night to 5 in the morning. With that money, I can buy food for Mrs. Williams and kibble for the cats." Michael felt something strange in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. "You work all night and then come here to work for free." "That was our agreement," she smiled. But for the first time, he noticed the exhaustion in her eyes. There are still 2.5 weeks left. For the rest of the day, Michael couldn't focus on anything else. He watched Emily discreetly, noticing small details he'd ignored before. How she yawned when she thought no one was looking. How her hands trembled slightly when carrying heavy trays. how she always smiled even when clearly exhausted. That afternoon, he did something he had never done in 25 years of his career, cancelled all his meetings and went searching for information about an employee's life. He discreetly spoke with Mrs. Williams, who had known Emily Parker's family for decades. "That girl has always been like this," the manager told him. "Even as a child, she took care of injured animals and helped elderly neighbors. Her mother, Sarah, tells me Emily has been working to help at home since she was 15. And her father? He left when she was 12, left Sarah with 3 kids and a lot of debt. Emily is the oldest. She's always sacrificed herself for her younger siblings. Did she go to school? She finished high school by working during the day and studying at night. She dreamed of going to college for teaching, but there was never enough money." Michael absorbed this information in silence. He was beginning to understand why Emily wasn't intimidated by his attempts to humiliate her. Someone who had faced so many real hardships wouldn't be shaken by a rich man's tantrums. That night, instead of going straight home, he drove to the downtown diner where Emily worked. He stood across the street, watching her through the window. She served customers with the same cheerfulness she showed at the restaurant. Even at 2 in the morning, dealing with drunk and difficult people, she kept her genuine smile and endless patience. A drunk man started making inappropriate comments. Emily stayed calm, served him politely, and when he persisted, she called the manager. There was no fight, no drama, just professionalism. Michael went home with more questions than answers. How did someone working 2 jobs manage to keep up that positive energy? Where did all that strength come from? By the 4th week, he completely changed his strategy. Instead of trying to humiliate her, he decided to test her in other ways. He wanted to understand the limits of this extraordinary young woman. On Tuesday, he pretended to feel sick during his shift. He slumped heavily into a chair, clutching his chest. "Mr. Thompson," Emily rushed to him. "Are you okay?" "My chest. It hurts," he groaned, watching her reaction. Without hesitation, she asked someone to call an ambulance, loosened his tie and helped him lie down on the restaurant floor. "Stay calm, Mr. Thompson. The ambulance is on its way. Breathe slowly. Try to relax." She held his hand the whole time, speaking to him in a reassuring tone. When the paramedics arrived, she gave all the necessary information clearly and efficiently. At the hospital, Michael confessed he had been faking it. He expected to see anger in her eyes, or at least irritation. Instead, Emily laughed. "You scared me so much," she said, "but I'm glad you're okay." "You're not mad. I lied to you." "Everyone lies sometimes," she replied. "What matters is that you're really okay." "But why do you care? I spend all day being awful to you." Emily was quiet for a moment, looking out the hospital window. "You know, Mr. Thompson, when I was little, my grandmother taught me something. She said everyone carries pain in their heart. Sometimes people are mean, not because they're bad, but because they're hurt and don't know how to deal with it." "And you believe that?" "I do. You're a successful man. You have money, power, respect. But you don't seem happy. You seem like someone always fighting the world as if it did something terrible to you." Michael felt a lump in his throat. She had come dangerously close to the truth. "You know nothing about my life," he murmured. "You're right," she agreed. "But I know what I see, and I see someone who's forgotten how to truly smile." As they left the hospital, Michael offered her a ride. They drove in silence. He stopped in front of the modest house where she lived with her mother and siblings. "Emily?" he called out before she got out of the car. "Yes?" "Thank you for caring about me even when I don't deserve it." "Everyone deserves someone to care about them, Mr. Thompson." She stepped out of the car and waved before heading inside. Michael stood there for a few minutes, thinking about her words. The next day, he arrived at the restaurant determined to escalate his tests. He wanted to see just how far the young woman's patience would stretch. He created increasingly difficult situations. He made a point of spilling things for her to clean up. He changed the service rules mid-shift. He brought in especially difficult customers during her shifts. Emily faced it all with the same calm composure as always. She cleaned without complaint, adapted quickly to changes, and even won over the most impossible customers with her genuine warmth. On Thursday, Michael had a wicked idea. He invited Rebecca, his ex-fiancée, to lunch at the restaurant. Rebecca was a sophisticated and extremely demanding woman. If anyone could shake Emily, it would be her. Rebecca arrived wearing an expensive dress and flashy jewelry. She sat at the main table and immediately started complaining about everything. "This water tastes strange," she said when Emily brought the first glass. "I'll bring another right away," Emily replied politely. "This one is awful too. Can't you even serve water properly?" "I can bring sparkling water if you'd prefer." "I didn't ask for sparkling water. I asked for regular water that doesn't taste bad." Emily brought a third option, this time a more expensive brand. Rebecca took a sip and made an exaggerated face. What kind of place can't even serve decent water? Michael watched from a distance, waiting to see Emily lose her composure. But she kept her smile even as Rebecca criticized everything: the background music, the temperature, the decor. When the food arrived, Rebecca complained it was too hot. Emily waited for it to cool and served it again. Now it was too cold. Emily took it back to the kitchen to warm up. "This dish is terrible," Rebecca shouted, making sure the whole restaurant heard. "What kind of cooks do you have here?" "I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it, Ma'am," Emily said calmly. "May I suggest another dish from the menu?" "I don't want another dish. I want to speak to the manager." Mrs. Williams approached, but Rebecca dismissed her with a wave. "I don't want to talk to you. I want to speak to the owner." Michael walked over to the table, pretending to be upset. "What's the problem here?" he asked. "This incompetent waitress ruined my lunch," Rebecca said, pointing at Emily. "She can't serve water. She can't serve food. She can't do anything right." "Emily," Michael turned to the young woman, "what do you have to say for yourself?" Emily took a deep breath before answering. "I'm sorry I couldn't meet your expectations, Ma'am," she said, looking directly at Rebecca. "I know sometimes when we're having a tough day, everything feels wrong. I hope your afternoon gets better and you find reasons to smile today." Rebecca was speechless. She had prepared for an argument, not a sincere wish for her day to improve. I, she stammered. "Excuse me," Emily said. "I'll bring your check." As she walked away, Rebecca turned to Michael. "What kind of employee do you have here? She made me furious, and then made me feel guilty." "Why would you feel guilty?" Michael asked. Because Rebecca struggled for words. "She was too polite. How am I supposed to stay mad at someone who hopes my day gets better?" Michael smiled for the first time in weeks. Emily had completely disarmed Rebecca without a single harsh word. When Rebecca left the restaurant, clearly flustered, Michael approached Emily. "How did you do that?" he asked. "Do what?" "She came here to humiliate you and left feeling bad for being rude." "Sometimes people just need a little understanding," replied Emily. "That woman is clearly going through something hard. Happy people don't treat others poorly for no reason." "She wasn't going through anything hard. That's just how she is." "Everyone is going through something, Michael. We just don't know what it is." That night, Michael called Rebecca to ask how she was doing. To his surprise, he found out she had recently ended a relationship and was going through a messy divorce. Emily was right. Rebecca was taking out her frustration on innocent people. By the end of the 4th week, Michael realized he had completely stopped trying to humiliate Emily. Instead, he watched her work, trying to understand how she did what she did. One afternoon, he saw her talking to a little girl who was having lunch with her parents. The child was crying because she didn't want to eat her vegetables. "You know what I used to do when I was little and didn't want to eat broccoli?" Emily crouched down to the girl's level. "What?" the girl asked between sobs. "I pretended they were tiny magic trees that would give me superpowers." "Real superpowers?" "Really? Want to see?" Emily took a bite of broccoli and pretended to grow stronger. "Wow, I can feel my muscles getting bigger." The girl laughed and agreed to eat her vegetables. The parents thanked her, moved. Michael watched the scene with a strange feeling in his chest. When was the last time he had made a child smile? On Friday of the 4th week, he made a decision. He arrived early at the restaurant and found Emily preparing soup for Mrs. Williams. "Emily," he called. "Good morning, Michael. I'd like to go with you to visit your neighbor today." She stopped stirring the soup and looked at him in surprise. Why? Curiosity. All right, but her house is very simple. I hope you don't mind. I don't. They walked up the steep trail together to Mrs. Williams's house. When the elderly woman opened the door and saw Michael, she grew visibly nervous. This is my boss, Mrs. Williams, Emily explained. He wanted to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, ma'am, said Michael, extending his hand. Mrs. Williams invited them inside. The house was tiny but spotlessly clean. On the walls, photos of smiling children and grandchildren shared space with images of saints. Emily is an angel, said Mrs. Williams, serving coffee in chipped cups. I don't know what I'd do without her. How long has she been helping you? About 6 months. I was hospitalized with pneumonia, and when I got out, I had no one to help me. My children live far away, work too much. That's when Emily showed up. How did she know you needed help? Oh, that's an interesting story. Mrs. Williams smiled. I had fainted on that trail, carrying groceries too heavy for my age. Emily found me, brought me home, stayed with me until I felt better. She's never left me since. Michael looked at Emily, who was playing with a cat in her lap. She told me she worked as a maid her whole life. I did. 50 years cleaning rich people's homes. Some treated me well, others... She paused. Others treated me like I was invisible, or worse. What's it like to be treated as if you're invisible? It's when you clean, cook, take care of the whole house, but people don't even say good morning to you. It's when you work sick because missing one day means getting fired. It's when you hear them talk about how much they spent on dinner, money that would be 6 months of your pay. Michael felt the weight of the old woman's words. How many times had he treated employees exactly like that? But life has taught me one important thing, Mrs. Williams continued. You can choose to turn bitter or stay sweet. I chose to stay sweet, and Emily did too. That's why she shines wherever she goes. When they went back downstairs to the restaurant, Michael was silent. Thank you for taking me there, he finally said. Mrs. Williams liked you. She has a good eye for people. How do you know? She offered coffee. When she doesn't like someone, she only offers water. Michael laughed and Emily smiled at the sound. That's the first time I've heard you laugh for real, she said. First time in a long time I've had a reason to laugh. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. That afternoon, something between them changed for good. Michael stopped looking for ways to test or humiliate her. Instead, he began watching how she worked, trying to learn from her attitude. He saw how she greeted every employee by name, always asking about their families, how she shared her food when someone forgot their lunch, how she stayed after hours to help those who were struggling. On Saturday, the last day of the 4th week, Michael made a decision that even surprised himself. Emily, he called her at the end of the shift. Yes, Mr. Thompson. Our bet is almost over. That's true. 3 more days. What if I told you you've already won? What do you mean? In a month, you haven't given me a single real chance to humiliate you. You turned every attempt of mine into something positive. You won. Emily stayed quiet for a moment. Are you giving up on the bet? I'm admitting I lost, and when I lose, I pay up. What kind of payment? You choose. Do you want money? A permanent job here? A recommendation letter to work anywhere? I want to keep working here, she said without hesitation. With pay? With pay. Perfect. But there's one condition. What? You'll teach me. Teach you what? How to be a better person. Emily looked into his eyes for a long moment. That's not something you teach, Mr. Thompson. It's something you learn by living. But I can help you through it. How? First, you need to tell me why you're so angry at everyone. And please be honest, I've spent a month being honest with you. Michael took a deep breath. It had been a long time since he'd shared his personal story with anyone. Do you have time now? He asked. I do. They sat at a table in the back of the restaurant. Michael ordered 2 coffees and began his story. I grew up very poor right here in New York City, he started. My father worked in a factory, my mother took in laundry. There were 5 of us kids in a 2-room apartment. That must have been hard, Emily remarked. It was, but we were happy, believe it or not, until the day my father lost his job. I was 15. What happened? The factory shut down. The owner said he was moving production to another state where labor was cheaper, fired everyone on the spot, no warning, no fair severance. That's awful. My father fell into depression, went months without another job. We lost our home, had to move to the slums. My mother got sick from overwork and worry. Michael paused to take a sip of coffee, the memories clearly painful. The worst part wasn't the poverty, he continued. The worst was how people treated us. Our old neighbors, who used to be friends, started avoiding us. At school, kids mocked my worn-out clothes. Teachers acted like I'd somehow gotten dumber just because I was poor. People can be cruel when they feel superior, said Emily. That's when I decided I'd never be that vulnerable again, that I'd be rich, powerful, and no one would ever humiliate me again. And you succeeded. I did. I worked 16 hours a day, studied at night, got through college on a scholarship, started my first business at 25. By 30, I was a millionaire. But you grew angry at everyone in the process. Exactly. At some point, I decided if the world had been cruel to me, I'd be cruel right back. Emily absorbed the story in silence. I understand why you became like that, she finally said. But can I ask you something? Go ahead. Did all that anger actually improve anything? Do you feel happier being cruel to others? Michael thought honestly about the question. No, he admitted. In fact, I feel emptier every day. Then maybe it's time to try something different. Like what? Like remembering who you were before all that anger. That 15-year-old boy who was poor but happy. That boy died a long time ago. I don't believe that, Emily smiled. Today, when you visited Mrs. Williams, I saw that boy in your eyes. When you laughed in the car, he's still there, just hidden under a lot of hurt. Michael felt something stir in his chest, a feeling he'd forgotten how to recognize. What if I can't change, he asked. What if 20 years like this has made me a bad person for good? Everyone can change, Mr. Thompson. The question is, do you want to? I do, he said, surprised by the sincerity in his own voice. I'm tired of being someone people fear. Then let's start slow. Tomorrow's Monday, first day of our new dynamic. Will you let me suggest a few things? Like what? First, no yelling at employees. If you have a complaint, talk to me first. I'll help you find a better way to handle it. All right. Second, once a week you'll have lunch in the kitchen with the staff, not as the boss checking up, but to get to know the people who work with you. That'll be hard for me. I know. That's why I'll be there too. Third, you'll join me once a week visiting Mrs. Williams. She has interesting stories and could use the company. Why is that important? Because you need to remember there are people in the world who want nothing from you except a little attention and kindness. It's good for the soul. Michael nodded slowly. And in return, he asked. In return for what? What do you want from me? Everyone wants something. I just want to see you smile for real more often, she answered simply. Michael looked at her for a long moment. There was a sincerity in Emily's eyes he hadn't seen in anyone for years. All right, he said, let's try. They got up from the table. As they said goodbye at the restaurant door, Michael felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. On Sunday, he stayed home thinking about their conversation. For the first time in decades, he wanted to call someone just to talk. But there was no one in his contacts who wasn't a business connection. On Monday, he arrived at the restaurant nervous. It was his first day trying to be someone different. Emily arrived at her usual time, now as an official employee. She smiled when she saw him. Good morning, Mr. Thompson. Good morning, Emily, he replied, noticing how different it sounded when he returned the greeting. Throughout the morning, he had plenty of chances to fall back into old habits. George dropped a tray. The supplier delivered ingredients late. A customer complained about waiting too long. Each time, he took a deep breath and looked for Emily before reacting. What did I do before in these situations? He asked after the third incident. Yelled, humiliated, threatened to fire everyone, she answered honestly. And did that solve the problems? No, it just made everyone afraid and more prone to mistakes. So what do we do differently? We'll talk to each person involved, understand what happened, and look for solutions instead of blame. They spent the morning resolving issues this new way. To Michael's surprise, the problems were solved faster and with less stress for everyone. At lunchtime, the first real test arrived, eating with the staff. "Everyone," said Emily, gathering them in the kitchen. "Mr. Thompson is having lunch with us today. Who wants to tell him about their families?" The silence was awkward. The employees glanced at each other, unsure what to do. "I'll start," Mrs. Williams said bravely. "I have 2 grandsons, Michael. One's 8, the other 5. The older one wants to be a chef when he grows up, just like his late grandfather." "What are their names?" Michael asked, surprising everyone with the question. "Ethan and Noah." "And what do they like to do?" "Ethan loves cooking with me on weekends. Noah is crazy about soccer. He plays for his school team." Gradually, others began to open up. George spoke about his 40 years of marriage. Daniel, the cook, shared about the culinary course he was taking at night. Jessica, the young waitress, mentioned she was saving up to get married. "Jessica," said Michael, "when's the wedding?" "Next year, God willing. We're still saving for the party." "How long have you been engaged?" 3 years. My fiancé works as a mechanic. We don't earn much, so we're taking it slow." Michael absorbed this. For the first time, he saw his employees as people with complex lives, dreams, and struggles. After lunch, he pulled Emily aside. "It was harder than I expected," he admitted. "Hard how?" "Realizing I've worked with these people for years and knew nothing about them, that I never cared to know. But now you do. It's a start." "Emily, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you agree to help me after how I treated you that first month?" She thought before answering. "Because I recognized something in you." "What?" "Pain. I know what it's like to grow up poor, to be treated badly because of it. The difference is, when it happened to me, I had my family to lean on. You were left alone with your anger." "I don't feel so alone anymore," he said, immediately flushing at such a personal admission. "Good," Emily smiled, "because true friendship is one of life's greatest gifts." In the weeks that followed, Michael began to experience a gradual transformation. It wasn't easy or quick. Often he'd slip back into old habits without realizing. "Mr. Thompson," Emily would gently interrupt, "let's try again, but with more patience this time." She never criticized him directly, just redirected him, and it worked. One day during the 3rd week of this new dynamic, something unexpected happened. Michael was reviewing accounts when he heard raised voices from the dining area. An extremely agitated customer was yelling at Jessica because her order had taken longer than usual. "What kind of place is this?" the man shouted. "I'm an important client. You can't keep me waiting like this." Jessica was clearly shaken, trying to explain. "Sir, there was a slight delay in the kitchen, but your dish is on its way." "I don't care. I want to speak to the manager now." Michael stood up automatically. The old Michael would have sided with the customer, publicly humiliated Jessica, and used the situation to assert his authority. But as he approached the table, he looked at Jessica. He saw a hard-working young woman doing her best, being humiliated by a man who clearly believed money gave him the right to mistreat others. "What's the problem here?" he asked, but in a calm tone. "Finally, someone competent," the customer said. "This incompetent waitress made me wait 20 minutes. Michael looked at Jessica, who was trembling. "Jessica," he said gently, "can you explain what happened?" "There was an issue with the stove, Mr. Thompson. Some dishes were delayed, but it's all sorted now." "I see. Thank you for explaining." He turned to the customer. "Sir, I understand your frustration with the delay, but Jessica isn't to blame for the technical issue we had. She's doing her best." "I don't care. I pay good money to eat here and expect proper service." "And you are getting proper service," Michael said firmly, "from a polite and competent professional who doesn't deserve disrespect." The customer was stunned. Clearly, he hadn't expected the restaurant owner to stand up for an employee. "If you can't treat my staff with basic decency," Michael continued, "perhaps this isn't the right place for you to dine. Are you kicking me out? I'm suggesting you find an establishment where you can yell at staff without consequences. This isn't that kind of place anymore." The man stormed out, fuming. The entire restaurant had witnessed the scene. When Michael turned around, he saw all the staff looking at him with surprise and respect. It was different from the fear they usually showed. "Jessica," he approached the young woman. "Are you okay?" "Yes, Mr. Thompson. Thank you for standing up for me." "You don't have to thank me. You work here, you're part of our team, no one has the right to mistreat you." Jessica smiled, and Michael felt something strange, a satisfaction unlike anything he'd experienced in business. The satisfaction of doing the right thing. Emily approached once things settled. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Different," he answered honestly. "Very different." "Better or worse?" "Better. Definitely better." That night, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the incident. For the first time in years, he'd used his authority to protect someone weaker instead of flaunting power. The next morning, Jessica sought him out. "Mr. Thompson, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Jessica." "Yesterday, when you stood up for me," she hesitated. "I've worked here 2 years, and it was the first time I felt truly protected." "What do you mean?" "Before, when customers were rude, we had to take it silently. Because the customer is always right? But yesterday you showed that we matter too." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "You've always mattered, Jessica. I was just a bad boss." "You've changed a lot, Mr. Thompson. Everyone here's been talking about it." "Talking about what?" "That you're more human, more like one of us." After Jessica left, Michael pondered her words. More like one of us. When was the last time anyone saw him as a normal person, not just an authoritarian boss? Over the week, he noticed other changes. The staff greeted him spontaneously. They smiled when he walked by. They even joked around him. "Why are they more relaxed with me?" he asked Emily during one of their now routine afternoon chats. "Because you've stopped being a constant threat," she replied. "Before, everyone lived in fear of making a mistake and being humiliated. Now they know you'll help instead of attack. But I'm still the boss. The hierarchy hasn't changed." "The hierarchy hasn't, but the dynamic has. You're still in charge, but now you lead with respect. That makes all the difference." "Do you think they respect me more or less now?" "Much more. Before they obeyed out of fear. Now they respect you out of admiration." "It's completely different." Michael absorbed that information. Admiration. When was the last time someone admired him as a person, not just as a successful businessman? At the end of the month, Mrs. Williams approached him. "Michael, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Mrs. Williams." "I've worked here for 20 years, she began. "I've seen many changes, many ups and downs, but I've never seen a transformation like yours." "In what way?" "You've become the boss I always dreamed of having. Someone who leads by example, who protects his team, who treats everyone with dignity." "Thank you, Mrs. Williams. That means a lot coming from you." "Can I ask what caused this change?" Michael looked out the window, seeing Emily outside feeding the stray cats. "I met someone who showed me who I could be," he said, "and I decided I liked that version of myself better." Emily. Emily. She really is special. From the first day, I knew she'd change something here. "How did you know?" "Because she wasn't afraid of you." And when someone isn't afraid of you, 2 things can happen. Either you destroy that person or they transform you. You chose to be transformed. That night, Michael had an important conversation with himself. He looked in the mirror and saw a different man. Not physically, but something in his eyes had changed. The hardness had given way to something softer, more human. He thought about his talk with Mrs. Williams. You chose to be transformed. It was true. At some point, he'd made a conscious choice to change. When exactly had that happened? Maybe when he saw Emily caring for Mrs. Margaret, or when she disarmed Rebecca with kindness, or when she held his hand at the hospital. Or perhaps it had been on the first day when she laughed after spilling coffee on him. When she showed it was possible to challenge authority without malice, just with courage and good humor. On Saturday, he made an unexpected decision. He invited Emily to dinner outside the restaurant. "Like a date?" she asked, clearly surprised. "Like a celebration," he said, blushing. "It's been 2 months since you arrived. I want to celebrate." "Celebrate what?" "The fact that you saved my soul." Emily laughed with that spontaneous laugh he'd grown to love. "I didn't save anything, Mr. Thompson. I just helped you remember who you always were inside." They dined at a simple restaurant, not much different from the one where she worked nights. Michael insisted on going somewhere like that. "Why didn't we go somewhere fancier?" Emily asked. "Because I want to understand what normal people's lives are like," he replied. "I spent so many years only going to expensive places that I forgot what the real world is like." Over dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Family, dreams, fears, hopes. Michael learned Emily wanted to go back to school, to study education. "Why education?" he asked. "Because I love children, and I think education is the only real way to change the world." "You want to change the world?" "I want to change a few children's lives. If everyone changes a few lives in the end, everyone ends up changed. Like you changed mine. Like you're changing the restaurant staff's." Michael paused with his fork in the air. "That's true," he said, realization dawning. "When I change my behavior, it affects everyone around me." "Exactly. Kindness is contagious, just like cruelty. The difference is kindness makes everyone feel better." "Emily, can I ask you a personal question?" "You may." Do you feel something for me? Beyond friendship?" She blushed and lowered her eyes. "I do," she admitted, "but not for the rich and powerful man. For the moments when I see the 15-year-old boy who just wanted to be loved. And what if I told you that boy is learning to love in return? Then I'd say that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." They looked at each other for a long moment, the air thick with possibility. "We're very different," said Michael. "We are," agreed Emily. "But differences can complement each other if there's respect and affection." "There is," he said without hesitation. "A lot of respect and a lot of affection." When they left the restaurant, Michael offered her a ride. On the way, they kept talking in the car parked in front of Emily's house. "Michael," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything." "If we're going to try something together, I need us to take it slow. I need you to be sure it's not just gratitude or fascination with the change." "And you? Are you sure it's not just pity for the bitter man learning to smile again?" "I am. I've fallen for the person you're becoming, for the brave man who chose to change instead of staying hurt." "Then let's take it slow," he agreed. "We have time." "We do." She leaned in and kissed him lightly on the cheek before getting out of the car. Michael sat there for a few minutes, still feeling the warmth of her kiss. That night, he slept better than he had in years. The following Monday, he arrived at the restaurant with a different energy. There was a lightness in his step, a new sparkle in his eyes. "Someone's happy today," Emily remarked when she saw him. "I am," he admitted. "Very happy." Over the week, the dynamic between them shifted subtly. It was no longer just a boss-employee relationship, nor just a friendship. There was a growing closeness, lingering glances, conversations that stretched beyond work hours. The other staff noticed, of course. "They're falling for each other," Jessica whispered to Mrs. Williams. "About time," the manager replied. "I've never seen two people who complemented each other so well. Do you think it'll work? They're so different." The best love stories are about different people who become better together. On Friday, something happened that tested everything Michael had learned. A health inspector showed up for a surprise visit. He was known for being extremely strict and had shut down several establishments for minor violations. "Mr. Thompson," the inspector said upon arrival, "I'll be examining the entire restaurant operation. I expect everything to be in perfect order." Michael felt anxiety rise. A heavy fine, or worse, a temporary closure, would be disastrous for business. The inspector started with the kitchen, scrutinizing every detail with a metaphorical magnifying glass. He found a few minor issues: a fridge running slightly above the ideal temperature, some expiration dates that were borderline. The old Michael would have exploded at the staff, turning the inspection into chaos of yelling and accusations, but the new Michael took a deep breath. "Mrs. Williams," he called calmly to the manager, "let's address these issues right away." "Daniel," he said to the chef, "adjust the fridge temperature and let's replace the items nearing expiration. Jessica, can you help organize the stock while we handle these?" Everyone mobilized efficiently, without panic or blame. Within an hour, all the issues were resolved. The inspector watched silently. "Interesting," he finally said. "What's interesting?" Michael asked. "In 20 years of inspections, I've never seen a team handle pressure so well. Usually when I find problems, it turns into pandemonium. Bosses yelling, employees pointing fingers, everyone on edge. And that matters. It's everything. A team that works well under pressure is a team that truly cares about quality. Here everyone reacted as if they owned the business." "Because they do," said Michael. "Each one of them owns a piece of this place's success." The inspector smiled, the first time anyone had seen him smile during an inspection. "Congratulations, Mr. Thompson. This is one of the best-run establishments I've ever visited, not just technically, but humanely." After the inspector left, the staff celebrated. For the first time, an inspection had ended without drama, without blame, without anyone being humiliated. "How do you feel?" Emily asked Michael. "Proud," he replied. "Proud of our team." "Our team?" "Ours. I may be the owner, but this is the result of everyone's work." That night, Michael made a proposal to Emily. "I want to create a profit-sharing program," he said. "Everyone who works here will receive a percentage of the monthly results." "Really? Really? And I want your help to structure it fairly. Why do you want to do this?" "Because I've learned that when people feel valued, they give their best. And when everyone gives their best, everyone wins. This will cost you a lot of money." "It will, but it will generate much more value for everyone, including me." "How so?" "Emily, 3 months ago I was a rich and miserable man. Now I'm a rich and happy man. The difference isn't in the money, it's in the people around me. And you want to make sure those people stay around you. I want to make sure they're happy around me. It's different." The following week, Michael announced the profit-sharing program to the entire team. The reaction was disbelief, followed by euphoria. "Mr. Thompson," said George with tears in his eyes, "in 50 years of work, I've never had a boss who wanted to share success with me." "You deserve it, George. All of you do." "But why are you doing this?" asked Jessica. Michael looked at Emily before answering. "Because I've learned that shared success is multiplied success." In the months that followed, the restaurant transformed completely. Not just in atmosphere, but in results. The team's motivation was reflected in the quality of service, which was reflected in customer satisfaction, which was reflected in increased sales. Michael and Emily developed a partnership that went beyond the professional. She became his unofficial HR consultant, helping him implement fairer and more humane policies. "You know what impresses me the most," she said during one of their afternoon conversations. "What? How you managed to change without losing your authority. Everyone here respects you as much as before, maybe more." "What's the difference?" "Before, they respected you out of fear. Now they respect you out of admiration. Fear breeds obedience. Admiration breeds loyalty. And loyalty is more valuable than obedience. Much more. Loyal people work for shared success. Obedient people work to avoid punishment." Michael nodded, understanding the depth of the observation. "Emily, can I ask something I've always wondered?" "Of course." "On the first day, when you spilled coffee on me, did you do it on purpose?" She laughed, blushing a little. "No," she said. "It was really an accident. But when I saw your reaction, when I saw how you treated people, I decided I wouldn't apologize." "Why?" "Because apologizing would mean accepting that I was wrong for existing in the same space as you. And I wasn't wrong. You were the one wrong for thinking you were superior to others. And when you proposed the bet, that was on purpose," she admitted. "I already knew you wouldn't be able to humiliate me." "How did you know?" "Because you can't humiliate someone who doesn't feel inferior to you, and I never felt inferior." "Different, yes. Inferior, never." "Where did that confidence come from?" "From my grandmother. She always taught me that a person's worth isn't in what they have, but in who they are. And I knew who I was. And who are you? A good, hard-working person who deserved respect no matter how much money was in the bank. Michael looked at her with growing admiration. You saved me, he said. We saved each other, she corrected. You showed me it's possible to change even when it seems impossible. That gave me hope for the world. Hope for the world. If a man like you can change, anyone can. That means nothing is lost, that there's always a second chance. That night, Michael made an important decision. He asked to speak with Emily in private. Emily, remember when you said you wanted to study education? I do. What if I told you I want to fund your studies? I'd say that's very generous, but no buts. It's not generosity, it's an investment. An investment in what? In the future. You want to teach children to change the world through education. I want to support that. Why? Because you changed my life by teaching me. Imagine how many others you could change by teaching officially. Emily was silent for a moment, clearly moved. I accept, she finally said, but on one condition. What? That you create a scholarship program for other employees who want to study, not just for me. Done. Really, really. We'll create the program together. 2 months later, the scholarship program was up and running. Jessica was taking a business course. Daniel had enrolled in an advanced culinary class. Even George decided to take a basic computer course. This is costing a fortune, Michael's accountant remarked. It is, Michael agreed, and it's worth every penny. How so? Productivity has increased 40%. Employee turnover has dropped to almost zero. Customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. Investing in people is the best business decision I've ever made. Not to mention the intangible. What intangible? You're happy, Michael. In 20 years of working with you, I've never seen you truly happy. Michael thought about those words after the accountant left. It was true. He was happy. Happy in a way that had nothing to do with money or success, but with purpose and connection. On Saturday, he and Emily visited Mrs. Williams, as had become their tradition. How are you two? The elderly woman asked, serving coffee. Good, Emily replied. Michael just implemented another program at the restaurant. What kind of program? Scholarships for employees, Michael explained. We want everyone to grow professionally. How wonderful, Mrs. Williams exclaimed. And to think, just a few months ago, you were that bitter man who yelled at everyone. You remember me like that? I sure do. Mrs. Williams always said you were difficult to work with. Called you a good businessman, but a complicated person. And now? Now she speaks of you like a son, says you've become the best boss she's ever had. Michael felt his chest tighten with emotion. You know what impresses me most about your story, Mrs. Williams continued. What? They asked in unison. How you both became better people through love. Not just romantic love, but love for humanity. How so? Michael, you learned to love your employees, your customers, even your suppliers. Emily, you already loved everyone, but now you have someone who loves you the way you deserve. That completes a person. As they left Mrs. Williams' house, Michael and Emily walked silently along the path. She's right, he finally said. About what? About love. I learned to love through you. Not just you, but everyone. And I learned that it's possible to change people through love, replied Emily. I always believed it in theory, but you proved it to me in practice. Where are we going now? Wherever you want, she smiled. We have our whole lives ahead of us. Our whole lives, if you want. I do, he said, stopping to hold her hands. I really do. They kissed there on the trail as the sun set over the city. It was a kiss full of promises, of possible futures, of love that had grown from the courage of a young woman and the humility of a man willing to change. 6 months later, Michael and Emily married in a simple ceremony held at the restaurant itself. All the staff were present, along with Mrs. Williams and Emily's family. I never imagined I'd get married at the place where I work, said Emily, beautiful in her simple dress. This place represents our story, Michael replied. It's where we met, where we fell in love, where we built our family." "Our family?" "All of them," he said, gesturing to the staff around them. "They're all part of our family." During the ceremony, George gave a heartfelt speech. "On behalf of all the staff," he said, "I want to thank both of you. Emily for teaching us that respect is possible. Michael for proving that people can change. You've turned this restaurant into a real family." Mrs. Williams couldn't hold back her tears. "Michael," she said, "you became the man I always knew was behind all that anger." After the ceremony, as the celebration continued, Michael and Emily slipped away for a private talk in the office. "I can't believe we're married," he said. "Me neither," she laughed. "A year ago, you were the most feared boss in the city. Now you're the sweetest husband in the world. Do you think people will believe our story?" "They'll think it's something out of a movie," she chuckled. "Tough businessman transformed by the love of a kind, humble employee." Sounds cliché when you say it like that, but it's not cliché, it's real life. And real life is sometimes more amazing than any movie. "Emily, can I confess something?" "Of course. I've loved you much longer than I admitted." "Since when?" "Since that very first day, when you laughed after spilling coffee on me. It was the first time in years someone wasn't afraid of me. And I've loved you since the day you stood up for Jessica against that rude customer. That's when I saw there was still kindness in your heart." "So, we were in love for months, and pretending it was just friendship." "Exactly," she laughed. "How silly we were." "We weren't silly. We were careful. That's different." They kissed again, sealing not just their love, but the entire journey that had brought them there. A year later, Michael and Emily opened a culinary school for underprivileged youth. The project combined her passion for education with his business experience. "Do you really believe you'll change the world one person at a time?" a reporter asked during the opening. "We don't want to change the world," Emily replied. "We want to give people the tools to change their own lives." "And you, Mr. Thompson, how does it feel turning your life experience into a social project?" "I feel grateful," Michael answered. "Grateful to have learned that true success is when you can lift others up with you." The school was an immediate success. Young people who had never had opportunities discovered talents, developed skills, and built futures. "You know what makes me proudest?" Emily said to Michael during one of the graduations. "What?" "That we're raising a generation of professionals who know it's possible to succeed without being cruel." "How so?" "All our students learn not just how to cook, but how to lead with humanity. They enter the job market knowing that a good boss is one who cares for people. So we're multiplying what we've learned." "Exactly. Every student we train will treat their future employees with respect, and that's how it spreads." 5 years after their marriage, Michael and Emily had 3 restaurants, 2 culinary schools, and a microcredit program for small entrepreneurs. "Do you miss the old life?" Emily asked during a romantic dinner. "What old life?" "When you were just a wealthy businessman with no social concerns." Michael laughed. "Are you kidding? That life was empty. I had money but no purpose. I had power, but no joy. I had success, but no love. And now I have all that and still get to make a difference in people's lives. It's incomparable. Even with all the extra work, all the social responsibility. Especially because of that. Emily, you taught me that life only makes sense when it's lived for something bigger than ourselves. And you taught me it's possible to change the system from within without tearing everything down." "How so?" "I used to think all wealthy people were the same, all selfish. You showed me it's possible to have money and use it for good. So we both learned not to judge entire groups of people. We both learned that everyone can change if they truly want to." That night, lying in bed, they talked about their dreams for the future. "What's your biggest dream now?" she asked. "That our children grow up in a world where stories like ours are common, not exceptional." "You want children?" "I do," he said without hesitation. "And I want them to see from an early age that success and kindness can go hand in hand." "I want that too," she smiled. "I want to raise children who know a person's worth isn't in what they have, but in what they do with it. So shall we start that family?" "Let's." 2 years later, Sarah was born, named after Emily's mother. She was a child who grew up surrounded by love, not just from her parents, but from the entire extended family of the restaurant. "Aunt Margaret!" 3-year-old Sarah would shout, running to hug Mrs. Williams whenever they visited. "Grandpa George," she called Mr. George, who taught her to make simple dishes in the kitchen. "She's lucky," Mrs. Williams remarked. "She has parents who love her and a whole community rooting for her. We want her to grow up knowing she's loved, but also knowing she has responsibilities," Michael explained. "What kind of responsibilities?" "To use her privileges to help others, to be kind always, even when it's hard, to stand up for what's right, even when it's easier to stay quiet." Years passed. The original restaurant became a social franchise. Other entrepreneurs could use the business model as long as they followed the principles of fair treatment for employees. "You've started a movement," a consultant said during a meeting. "We didn't start anything," Emily replied. "We just showed it's possible to do business differently. But it's spreading. There are already 15 restaurants using your model, and I hope there'll be 500, Michael said. "The more companies treat employees like people, the better for everyone. Aren't you afraid of competition?" "Competition?" Emily laughed. "The more people doing the right thing, the better. We're not competing. We're collaborating for a better world." On the 10th anniversary of Michael and Emily's first meeting, they threw a party at the original restaurant. Everyone who had been part of their journey was there. "I'd like to make a toast," Michael said, raising his glass. The room fell silent. 10 years ago, I was a rich and unhappy man. I used to think the world owed me something and wasted my energy chasing this non-existent debt from innocent people, until a brave young woman spilled coffee on me and refused to apologize. Everyone laughed, remembering the story. Emily taught me that true strength isn't about making others feel small. It's about helping others grow. "He taught me that everyone deserves a second chance," Emily replied, "even people who seem impossible to change." So our toast is to second chances, to the courage to change, and to the transformative power of love, said Michael. "Cheers," they all shouted together. As the party continued, Michael and Emily slipped away for a conversation in the backyard garden where she used to feed the cats. "Do you have any regrets?" she asked. "Just one," he answered. "What?" "That it took me so long to learn these lessons. I think about how many people I could have helped if I'd changed sooner. But maybe you weren't ready before. Maybe you needed to go through all that to appreciate what you have now. You always find the bright side of everything. And you always take responsibility for your mistakes. We make a good team. The best team in the world." They glanced through the window at the party. Mrs. Williams, now 85, was dancing with Sarah, now 5. George was telling stories to a group of young employees. Margaret was organizing everything with her usual loving efficiency. "They're our family," said Emily. "They're our life," Michael agreed. "And they're our responsibility," she added. "Responsibility? To show that it's possible, that companies can be humane, that bosses can be kind, that success can include everyone. Then let's keep showing them. Forever." They kissed there in the garden as the stray cats, now plump and happy, slept in heated boxes Michael had installed. It was a perfect scene of love, family, and purpose. Proof that sometimes the best stories begin with a seemingly insignificant accident and the courage of one person who refuses to accept that just because things have always been a certain way, they always will be. The end. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of this story of transformation? Do you believe people can truly change when they find love and purpose? Share with us in the comments where you're watching from, and if you know any similar stories, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming tales.